Hey everybody. Okay, it's time to talk about Bob Dylan's, I believe this was his 35th album, believe it or not. His 35th album. He was 71 years old when the album was released or whatever. It was released September the 10th of 2012. And wow, it's incredible how much Bob Dylan I'd covered pretty much, you know what I mean, from literally his beginning, during his start of his career, all the way to here and now, you know? And I really think that these albums, especially the albums from the 2000s, and, you know, of course, with Together Through Life not kind of being like on the level of, you know, the comeback trilogy or whatever, I really do think Tempest is a big improvement over not Rough and Rowdy, but Together Through Life. And I just love that title too, Tempest. And supposedly there were, before I was looking up or whatever online, that a lot of people thought this was, clearly everybody thought this was going to be Dylan's last album. And, you know, I bet I bet a good majority of people probably were wondering, you know, will this be Dylan? You know, if this was Bob Dylan's 35th album, you know, how or would people just assume that this is it for Dylan? And but you know, who had ever thought? You know, he still continued on after releasing Tempest, and of course he had those, you know, Shadow Night or whatever, the crooner albums he came out with, the American Songbook albums or whatever. So, you know, if you're thinking, you know, after just, you know, clearly the release of Tempest, maybe a lot of people thought, hey, this was going to be the end of the line here for Dylan. And he actually, most people kind of have that connection with Shakespeare, kind of, because I heard that was, or looking up or whatever, that was like actually his last play he wrote, was a play that was called The Tempest. And so people thought that was kind of, this is it, like, as to why Dylan named the album Tempest or whatever. But clearly it wasn't the end, so, you know. And of course, for an album with, you know, people would be waiting, you know, I mean, think about it, that was 5 years ago now since Bob Dylan released his last kind of, you know, with actual new written material, you know. And it took Dylan, I mean, think about it, it took him almost, what, 7 years, you know, after this, you know, to come out with more new songs or whatever. And, you know, it's incredible to think, you know, 5 years ago was Rough and Rowdy Ways. But, yeah, Tempest was actually a play that was written by Shakespeare. It was called The Tempest or whatever. And, yeah, everybody, you know, looking online, you know, I saw looking up that people thought, oh, this may be the end and whatever, you know. But no, clearly Dylan said, no, I'm going to keep, you know, he was saying whatever, I'm going to keep going forward. And so that's what he did here, you know. And this was actually going to be a full-on religious album. And there are a lot of religious imagery on here, a lot of, especially Pay My Blood, I believe, one of the songs on the album or whatever. Definitely a lot of him getting that connection, the religious and biblical, you know, connections and stuff. And yeah, you know, he thought he was going to have everything kind of like how it was during that religious trilogy he had, the Christian years there of his or whatever, you know, and also, you know, Infidels. I guess Infidels is kind of somewhat a little bit like that in nature, you know. But yeah, the recording actually started in 2011, but the start recording dates was from January up to, I believe, sometime in mid 2012, maybe midsummer of that year, and it was recorded in I believe in Santa Monica, if I'm not right or wrong on that. Yeah, and it was actually in Groove Master Studios, which was the studio that Jackson Browne recorded in, which is kind of cool. It says that in the book here of the Dylan, the all songs, of course, the story behind every track. The cover was, let's see, it doesn't say the person here. Alexander Langrar. I can't pronounce that last name, but he took the photo, and and it's actually a real statue in Austria, which is cool, called Palais Athon Fountain, which is pretty neat, pretty artistic too, you know. So yeah, it said that this was Bob Dylan's 35th album. It went number one, however, in 4 different countries, but not here, of course, or the UK. In the States and over in Europe, it went to number 3. So it did pretty well, you know, it did pretty well for him. There was also a music video before the album's release, and it's actually on YouTube, actually. It was, I believe it was, the video looked like it was published in August of 2012 for Duquesne Whistle. So he pretty much got all the people that were actually in, from the other previous album, can't think of that, Together Through Life. See, I'm having a dumb brain fart moment or whatever. But anyways, and that was actually collaborated with Robert Hunter, and he also collaborated with him on Together Through Life too. But anyways, let's go ahead and kind of start here. We'll start off with Duquesne Whistle. So it's actually based, believe it or not, on a tornado that actually struck in a town called Duquesne in Missouri, although people claim it's in, it was like in Illinois or whatever. Yeah, so it's actually kind of real in a way, kind of a real tragedy that happened. Yeah, this is a really, really great, I definitely got to say, it really has like that kind of groove like you would hear definitely like on Love and Theft or whatever, Yeah, it really has a nice chugging groove. It really feels like you're on like a, like a train, and I just definitely love the, the way Dylan sings it. Almost seems like he's presenting you in this kind of, he's almost like prepping you. He's prepping you to let the listeners know that something is going to happen in this, in this story, in this scenario, whatever, in the song. In the music video, however, I was watching the music video a couple days ago, or actually just a couple minutes ago, I was actually watching it. And it's kind of okay, it seems a little dumb. I mean, music videos are just, if you want to listen to a song, you listen to the song, not the stupid video or whatever. I really feel like videos can kind of feel a little, they can kind of feel a little bit subjective in a way or whatever. They can kind of feel a little distracting. But it definitely has a little bit of a plot. You got a guy that's kind of basically, he's, I would say, stalking a girl. There's one part actually where he's trying to get into her car and she sprays him, the guy, whatever, with perfume, and she runs off with the car. Yeah, so, and there's also some guys that kidnap the guy, and you got Dylan with all these kind of weird, kind of like miss out of place characters. You got a guy dressed up as Gene Simmons or whatever, so it's kind of weird. I don't know where it was actually filmed, per se, or whatever, but yeah, it's a little bit distracting, but it also kind of in a way kind of explains about what, maybe there's some, kind of connection with the song itself, I guess. I love this line here. Listen to that Duquesne whistle blowing. It sounds like it's on a final run. I can hear a sweet voice gently calling, must be the mother of our Lord. Yeah, so you can tell with him saying with the Lord part there, you can kind of see as to why he wanted, it's almost partial religious in a way. Like he really wanted to fully make it, but you could definitely see still he's got a connection there still. Yeah, and I love the last line, blowing like she's blowing right on time. What a great line. Okay, then we get Soon After Midnight. This is actually a really nice ballad here. Of course, Bob Dylan playing that wonderful, beautiful piano. And I really love David Hidalgo. His playing on Together Through Life was really spot on. And I think his playing here is great here on Tempest. And this song, Soon After Midnight. So it says here, that evokes death and slaughter and also echoes a blues song titled Killing Floor, recorded by Howlin' Wolf, apparently. And the song also references, here's another Shakespeare kind of connection again, took reference of a comedy he did called Midsummer Night's Dream. So yeah, I really like this nice, beautiful, almost swaying ballad. Got the drums, of course, playing once it got the same drummer again from at least since Together Through Life. What's his name? Was it Stu Kimball, I believe. He was like the drummer. Anyways, and then we get a really nice chugging. Once again, kind of a little bit of a boogie woogie song called Narrow Way. Let's see. Yeah, it says here that it kind of resembles one of the songs off of Highway 61, somewhat the song of Highway 61 Revisited. There's actually a connection here about Narrow Way after Bob Dylan receiving the Medal of Freedom back in 2012. Yeah, I like, it even clearly says too as well, referencing the Bible in a way, and some of the, I believe the chorus or maybe some of the lines. Let me see. Sorry, folks, if I'm awkwardly pausing here to. Well, there is a pretty nice line. I like the lines such as, my heart is cheerful, it's never fearful. I'm been down on the killing floors. I'm in no great hurry. I'm not afraid of your fury. I face stronger walls than yours. And this last line, soon after midnight, I don't want nobody but you. Excuse me, that was... I'm sorry, that's actually one of the lines from Soon After Midnight. But Narrow Way... okay, never mind. See, I'm screwing up here. So anyways, some of the lines there were from the other song I was talking about. But here's the lines on the song I'm talking about here now, Narrow Way. Trying to find some of the, the biblical stuff on here. Like, look down, angel from the skies, help my weary soul to rise. I kissed your cheek, I dragged your plow. You broke my heart, I was your friend till now. Yeah, that's a good line. Yeah, it's a long road, it's a long and narrow way. If I can't work up to you, you'll have to work down to me someday. So it's very kind of, yeah, be gentle, brother, be gentle and pray. So maybe it's kind of referencing, you know, kind of building yourself up, you know, basically, you know. But here's another one that's actually pretty good. Long and Wasted Years. It says here, describes the twilight of a couple's contentious relationship. The man and the woman do not even try to understand each other. And again, this is kind of a little bit of like a gospel ballad, a little bit. And this song a little bit has a little bit like the shot of love and the saved period. And even the next one too. I like the lines such as, my enemy slammed into the earth. I don't know what he was worth, but he lost it all, everything and more. What a blithering fool he took me for. We cried on a cold and frosty morn. We cried because our souls were torn. So much for tears, so much for those long and wasted years. Wow, what a line. Yeah, it says, you know, yeah, and Tony Garnier, man, what a great bassist. I really love his playing here on this song. But yeah, really great stuff. And then we get Pay in Blood. Yeah, this is definitely a song, definitely that sounds a lot like his, you know, his gospel trilogy. Saying that violence and repression in the world prompt the narrator to cry for vengeance against politicians, the military, those who have lost all moral sense, and other so-called bastard. Yeah, he does say that in the song. Says one can also see a metaphor for the passion of Christ who died on the cross to save humankind. Yeah. Yeah, it does say that has some funkness to it. Yeah, it even has definitely like a good upbeat, you know, definitely upbeat guitars here for sure. I like this verse. Night after night, day after day, they strip your useless hopes away. The more I take, the more I give. The more I die, the more I live. So it's definitely, you know, referencing at least, you know, Bob, or at least with Jesus, you know, during the Last Supper, you know, where he's, you know, giving everyone his blood or whatever before he gets crucified, you know. Yeah, this is how I spend my days. I came to bury, not to praise. I drink my fill and sleep alone. I pay in blood, but not my own. Yeah, definitely. Then we get the next song, Scarlet Town. This is actually a really, really great song on the album. Inspired by Barbara Allen. With an English or Scottish traditional, was a 17th century's English or Scottish traditional ballad. Wow, which is interesting. Yeah, I really love the work on here. You got, you know, of course, David Hidalgo on violin, and David Heron on banjo. Yeah, I really like this song, and of course Dylan's, you know, vocalizations on the song as well. I mean, I don't want to, you know, really, you know, try to explain so much of the song, but it definitely seems like Scarlet Town is not the town to be in. You know, definitely seems like a, you know, like bad things or, you know, with Scarlet Town, you don't want to be in Scarlet Town. You know, such as, you know, it says here, you know, in Scarlet Town, the end is near. The seven wonders of the world are here. The evil and the good living side by side. All human forms seem glorified. Yeah, I love that line. Really great. Set 'em up, Joe. Play walking the floor. Play it for my flat-chested junkie whore. Yeah, that line. I'm staying up late. I'm making amends while the smile of heaven descends. So it's almost like, this is almost like you're either going to heaven or you're going to hell, basically, In Scarlet Town, you basically got to pick a side, So that's kind of interesting there, And then after that, we get early Roman kings. Now this definitely sounds a lot like, for sure, going back to like Blonde on Blonde or whatever, or maybe even, stuff from Bring It All Back Home, that one song or whatever. It says here that there was a gang that was called the Roman Kings, or they were nicknamed that, in the Bronx, New York, in the 60s and 70s. Oh, that's quite interesting. Of course, it says that some of the the song that sounds similar to many other old blues songs, such as stuff from Muddy Waters and Willie Dixon, which is interesting. Like I said, the groove is just really, really on point. And I like the line, or at least because there's a lot of like verses here into the song, but one here is absolutely phenomenal. I'll strip you of life, strip you of breath, ship you down to the house of death. One day you'll ask for me. There'll be no one else that you'll want to see. Bring down my fiddle, tune up my strings. Gonna break it wide open like the early Roman kings. Wow, now if that line doesn't give you goosebumps. It's, really, really great. Definitely more great lines definitely a lot of great verses and lines. Definitely for sure. Okay, then we get the last three songs. We do get kind of a longer song. We get, at least these next three songs are a bit long. Or at least the longest is Tempest, which is 13 minutes. But this one here is Tin Angel. Let's see here. It says here that the song is a vaudeville-like tragic murder ballad in which Dylan combines a classic lover's triangle, woman, deceived, husband, and lover. I do love the very slow pace of the song, and he even says, or at least the first verse. It was late last night when the boss came home to a deserted mansion and a desolate throne. Servants said, "Boss, the lady's gone. She left this morning, just 'fore dawn." I like this line. He renounced his faith and denied his Lord, crawled on his belly, put his ear to the wall. One way or another, he'd put an end to it all. Definitely a lot of metaphorically, with some of the lines here. Really, don't really want to go too much further because it kind of is a long song. But I really like the, once again, Bob Dylan presenting a story, presenting, basically a template for you to kind of follow, kind of, you will. Then we get the song Tempest. Now I really love the beautiful accordion here played by Donnie Heron. We got organ here, of course, Bob Dylan, Charlie Sexton, guitar. So definitely a very slow, and almost kind of, because it's supposed to sound like the time of the period of which is kind of based on with Tempest or whatever is actually the the vessel or whatever, the big tragic death of many others that was the Titanic. Said here that the tragedy happened of the night of April the 14th of 1912. And I really like how Dylan just kind of, like I was saying, like he gives you a blank canvas, and as he sings the lyric, as he's going along, and you hear the instrumentation, and you kind of gather the different characters and stuff as Bob Dylan is singing. You really get a picturesque, just a whole world, basically. You feel like you're there. You feel like you're with the people that are bound to, see what was going to really happen to these people. So yeah, I mean, again, I really love the, the beautiful, the like I said, the beautiful accordion that really falls within the song, and he mentions about the guy who ran the ship basically, and he even mentions about the actual feeling of the Titanic actually sinking, whatever, with him saying passengers were flying backward, forward, far and fast. They mumble, fumble, tumble, each one more weary than the last. And I like the watchman lay there dreaming. At 45 degrees, he dreamed the Titanic was sinking, dropping to her knees. He talks about, mothers and their daughters descending down the stairs, jumping into the icy waters, love and pity sent their prayers. He talks about the real people, the actual name of the people that were on the, the ship as well, which is cool, Yeah, news came over the wires, struck with deadly force. Love had lost its fires. All things had run their course. Yep. On the judgment of God's hand. Wow. Really, really amazing work here. Definitely, absolutely love this song for sure. And I mean, I love this, and definitely Tin Angel is my favorite songs here on the album. Then we get the last song, Roll On John. Now, of course, this was kind of a dedication and, talking about his fellow friend, however, although I was, or at least looking up or whatever, that they weren't really that close, but, but they were definitely best of friends for sure, and that's what basically got the Beatles to, really perk up their, their musicality, and also, really beefing up their, their lyrical, being more of a, not just lovey-dovey, but, serious stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you got to, I mean, definitely, like, you've got to hide your love away, definitely, I mean, John Lennon was definitely, for sure, really, definitely, being definitely on the wing of Bob Dylan for sure, Yeah, he even talks about the early beginnings, such as, He talks about the Quarrymen. Originally that's what they were called. The Beatles. I think what else kind of references here. I really do love these lines actually. Yeah, and of course I heard the news, oh boy. Yeah. And of course David Bowie did that on Young Americans at the end or whatever. But this line I absolutely love, the ending of each verse or whatever, as it basically tails back to, or loops back to, shine your light, move it on, you burn so bright, roll on, John. And that's basically the last verse and the last couple lines on Tempest. So I mean, kind of want to make this long because this is definitely worthwhile to discuss or whatever. But yeah, I really think Tempest is definitely a very definitely to me, however, a definitely a more bigger improvement of Together. But again, I feel like Together Through Life had its own, definitely had its own thing because they were trying to make songs for to make a connection of the movie, that movie, whatever, But yeah, I believe Tempest is definitely a great, this definitely a great latter end of basically end of the line here album or whatever, but definitely he wouldn't be ending he wouldn't be ending it, he still kept on going. We'll be talking about the American Songbook albums or whatever. Now I'm not going to make a separate each, make it separate over. I'm basically going to do one big video and basically how I feel about those 3 albums he did, Shadow in the Night and Stardust and those or whatever. But yeah, it wouldn't be until, was it 7 or whatever, chunk of years there, until he came out with another album where he had a lot of new songs or whatever, and it was Rough and Rowdy Ways. Just a couple months ago, it hit its 5-year anniversary. So really great stuff, folks. Really hoping to kind of close this out here for all the Bob Dylan albums or whatever, And of course, after this, I'll be doing the live stuff, So, anyways, folks, looking forward to many more Dylan videos, of course. And my next set to do is, the songbook, the Great American Songbook stuff, But anyways, gonna have some fun with that. So, hope you guys enjoy this one. Tempest, of course. Till then, folks, take care and bye-bye.